Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. And Jack, the Dukes run the Commonwealth.
20 in a row, big time. That is a kind of an insane stat that you have just destroyed everyone in the Commonwealth. ODU now in your conference, you're destroying them. The last time you played Virginia Tech, you also won. Last time you played Virginia, of course, that one is in the streak, as we all know. You won that game. So they've really dominated the Commonwealth, and I think it's only a matter of time before JMU is the premier FBS program in Virginia.
We like the sound of that. And I thought it was a little more rivalry-like.
I think I was talking about it on To the House. I forget where, because now I'm so many places talking, whether it's ESPN Richmond, this podcast, or To the House podcast. But it felt like going into that game, it wasn't a rivalry. It felt like I didn't care about ODU all that much on the football field. App State, to me, was this bigger rivalry. I still believe App State, in my opinion, the way I feel about the schools, is the bigger rivalry. But I feel ODU nipping at the heels because, especially on their end, they've lost to us twice in heartbreaking fashion. They probably really want to get one over on us. I hope Ricky Ronnie stays, not because JMU's 3-0 against him now since moving up to the FBS, but I hope Ricky Ronnie stays because he plays such a fun brand of football with his offensive coordinator. I love the ultra spread type of stuff that he's doing that gives JMU these difficulties. I love that he just yelled F you across the entire stadium to Bob Chesney after the onside kick. Apparently there was it wasn't the friendliest of handshakes post game is what I was also hearing. So I would love to see Ricky Ronnie come to Harrisonburg next year and try to beat JMU again with Bob Chesney on the other sideline. Cause now it feels like the coaches are getting in on it a little bit. I'd love to see the players get in on a little bit more than they are. But I think the fans don't like each other. I think ODU really doesn't like JMU. And that is a really, really good rivalry that I think may take over App State in the next couple of years. But as of right now, it's still number one App State. But that they've done a great job of making that a little bit more of a rivalry for at least us younger heads.
Yeah, I think it's getting there. And Ronnie, I feel like ODU fans are souring on him. I really like him from an unbiased spot. I feel like he's good. They've had some just brutal luck in one possession games during his tenure. But they always, even if they have a losing record or barely make a bowl game, they always seem more competent than they should be, given some of the talent on the roster. They do have some good individual talent, but JMU's roster is better than ODU's, and ODU still finds a way to be super competitive.
Ricky Ronnie is a very good football coach. Now, can he maybe be a better coach in those one possession games to avoid such a bad record? I think he has 5 wins and I think he's 5-17 in one possession games or something like that since taking over. Something insane where they've been in a ton of one possession games and they've lost a vast majority of them. But this is an ODU team that was 1-11 before he got there. He was taking this program from the gutter. They had fallen on some very hard times, and he has now taken them to be consistent middle tier Sunbelt team, Sunbelt East team. If they're in the Sunbelt West, they're probably competing for that title each and every year. But being in the Sunbelt East, they're competing. They're always a tough game. They pull out some wins they probably shouldn't. They lose some games they probably shouldn't. But, I mean, Ricky Ronnie's a good football coach. He's still, I think you got to keep him. I know the fans are souring on him, but I did see one hilarious argument for why they should keep him. And they say, if you fire him, you lose Colton Joseph and Jason Henderson. ODU fans, I'm here to tell you, Jason Henderson has not played this season. And if you lose him, you're going to lose him at the end of next season to this thing called graduation. Whether you like it or not, you may lose him this off season, depending on if a team comes in with a huge NIL bag. And Colton Joseph, you can find another redshirt freshman quarterback out there. They're not hard to find, and he didn't look great.
I don't think you should be keeping a coach for Colton Joseph necessarily.
Take it from us who lived the Lou Rowe era where it felt like every year we're like, if you fire him, you're losing this entire roster.
Not always true, and also not always the worst thing if you lose some of your roster.
Not only is it not the worst thing if you lose, I don't know a good segue, but BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform. Thank you, Bennett. Those facial expressions really help me get through that segue.
Most trusted.
and your number one source for online betting. Folks, do not fact check that statement. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, they capitalized in for that for some reason, because no other platform offers in-game live betting.
They're the only one I heard, yeah.
Yeah, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, Bellator, I imagine would probably be in there if they're including MMA. That's pretty cool. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's, I should say for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. And Bennett, where is this podcast starting?
We got to talk a little ODU. We'll get into App State. We'll talk East. We'll talk everything.
Yeah, we got to talk about the way it's all shaken out, because that Saturday went just about as good as it possibly could for JMU. It wasn't looking that way after the first 30 minutes of action, but after the full 60 minutes were played, it is now looking very promising for JMU here down the stretch.
They don't, I guess, yeah, we can start there. They don't need a ton to go their way the rest of the way. They need to win out. This is the easy scenario. They win out. They beat App State. They beat Marshall. And then Georgia Southern loses to either Coastal Carolina or App State. Coastal Carolina is a slight favorite. Georgia Southern's kind of melting down epically, I would say. Like the Troy loss is one thing. They also had a player, I don't know if you saw this, player leave the program. It was posting on Instagram about how they aren't serious about like winning championships.
And they lost Dexter Williams, who was like the orchestrator of both of their massive comebacks this season.
Great backup quarterback. Yeah.
It makes you wonder why he wasn't the starter if he was orchestrating these amazing comebacks, but that's
kind of a weird dynamic there. So it could go one of two ways, I think, for them, where they either rally around Clay Helton and like they do end up winning the East and they rally here, or they just like really collapse. They're trending more toward the really collapse, and that tends to be Clay Helton's like shtick at Georgia Southern. It's just like bad Novembers. So we'll see. But JMU's got a good chance. There's also a scenario where JMU loses to App and can still win the East. It requires a couple losses here and there. I think Marshall would have to lose to ODU this weekend, where they're currently an underdog, and then Georgia Southern loses out, and then JMU beats Marshall, and that would actually get JMU the East. So it's not technically must win, but if JMU loses, then you need Georgia Southern and
Marshall to lose out.
To both also lose this weekend. Yeah, and lose out.
Which Marshall then plays JMU, so JMU would then control that destiny in terms of that one off. But Marshall, I forget, only has one Sun Belt loss.
Yeah, what are their losses? Are Georgia Southern in a game they had, and then Virginia Tech and Ohio State.
Which it is insane, because you're kind of sitting there and like for a while, Georgia Southern was the biggest one in JMU fans' mind, where it's like, if Marshall had only held on to win that game. Now with everything happening, it's like, well, thank goodness Georgia Southern came back and won that game, because if they hadn't, JMU wouldn't be in contention to win the East, or at least not as much in contention as they are now. They would need Marshall to lose out if they had pulled out that win against Georgia Southern. So Marshall really in control of its own destiny. Marshall can lose this weekend and still beat JMU. So really, Marshall could rest its starters. I know they
lose the tiebreaker to Georgia Southern.
I guess. Sorry, in my mind, I'm already
giving Georgia Southern another loss,
maybe 2 losses. So, yeah, you're right. So Marshall, you went out; they control their own destiny. It's fun.
Marshall's the only team in the East that controls their own destiny, which is another thing that I think is worth noting with Georgia Southern. If they might lose another game, they don't control their destiny, which I think is a huge like internal bummer, I would assume, because I saw the player who left, I forget his name, but he had posted like, I wanted to bring us a Sun Belt championship, and I kept thinking of it from JMU's perspective, where Georgia Southern had to lose again. And I was like, why is this guy so down? All they got to do is win out against Coastal and App. And then I was like, oh wait, that's not true. They need help from Marshall now to make it happen. So I think that could hurt them in terms of like motivation.
How much of a bummer is it for Georgia Southern that you beat the first team in the Sun Belt, the third team in the Sun Belt, you're second, and you're not in control of your own destiny?
Because you lost to 2-7 Troy at home
in November, which has been Clay Helton's bugaboo.
And his quotes, he's an interesting one. We talk about like guys on the hot seat. He called the game against Troy like a pro style game. He was like, this felt like a back and forth pro game. Why would you say that?
But JMU handled its business with a 35-32 win in Norfolk. We'll keep coming back to Sunbelt East scenarios as we talk about it, but it was a really infuriating game at times and a really exciting game at times. Alonzo Barnett finished with just 192 passing yards, 18 of 26 and a touchdown. He added 70 yards on the ground, technically 92, but he was sacked a couple times, so he lost 22 yards, so his net was 70. George Pettaway, another great performance with 82 rushing yards. Wayne Knight was 74. Joby Mallory had 3 carries for 13 yards. The team finished with a season best 233 rushing yards. They're starting to find their rhythm in the rushing game. Thank you so much, Dean Kennedy. In a game where you were averaging 5 yards per carry, you ran it 48 times. That is amazing to see. I love that. Kind of the common thread that was during the 2 losses to ULM and Georgia Southern was that they weren't leaning on their run game, and they were putting the ball in what we assume was an injured Alonzo Barnett's hands a lot, and it resulted in 2 losses. And not only that, passing wise, Yamir Knight has stepped up to be the guy alongside Taylor Thompson. Those 2 combined for 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Wayne Knight also had 2 catches. Dylan Williams had a fantastic 16-yard first down conversion on the game's first drive. Dollison, Logan, Pettaway, and Cam Ross all had catches as well. I mean, it was a really solid offensive performance at times. There were other times where you wanted to pull your hair out, like 3rd and long draws or weird back-to-back screens that resulted in 4 yards when you needed 15. There were some infuriating penalties where it feels like penalties are kind of their Achilles heel on the road, and you can't really do that in App State in Boone, North Carolina this weekend because App will make you pay. What was your thoughts of the offense as a whole? They did enough to win. They looked really good at times. And I'm not trying to be a pessimistic Debbie Downer here. They did enough to win. They looked excellent, and they got the win in a tough place to play against a tough defense.
Yeah, I want to take back some of my in-game slander. They did like a 3rd and 6 run and then had no intention of going for it on 4th down and just punted right after, and I was mad about it. I feel like I can't be too mad about trying to get cute there when they also clinched the game on a 3rd and goal from the 8 quarterback draw up the middle. Like, so they were, and then they had a 3rd and 16 they converted with a screen. So I know people are like, why would you run a screen there? It's like, well, it had worked earlier. And like, why did you run on 3rd and long? They made it work earlier. So they had some stuff schematically I think they thought would work. And some of it did, some of it didn't. Some of that's because ODU's competent. Like I know they're 4 and 6, but some of these Sunbelt teams, you look at their record and they're just killing themselves scheduling wise with like 2 competent Power 5 teams. So what did ODU lose to like Virginia Tech and South Carolina? And South Carolina is like a fringe playoff contender.
Both of those games too, like they lost by 1 possession to South Carolina, another 1 possession loss in the Ricky Ronnie era. And then the Virginia Tech game, they were down like 1 score heading into the 4th quarter. And then the wheels just completely fell off. But like that was a very, very close game for 45 minutes of action. Like ODU, again, I know we've said it. I know we've now beaten them, but like a very competent football team.
Yeah. So like this game being close wasn't a huge shock. I thought the offense did plenty. I think if you're pointing like fingers, probably the special teams giving up like a block punt that was recovered at like the 3 for a touchdown. That seemed like a pretty big momentum changer that hurt. But even then, so they give up a blocked punt essentially for a touchdown. ODU still needs a late drive to get it within 3 because JMU did lead after the Barnett rushing touchdown or his second rushing touchdown, I guess, 35-24. And then they kind of went into like a prevent defense, making sure that they could hold on to the lead, although they gave up a touchdown pretty quick in that defense. And then Logan Kyle made a nice play on the onside kick to recover that. But like they could have won this game by 10 plus for sure. You take out the block punt mistake. Maybe you don't go into prevent defense. They missed some chunk plays. They had Cam Ross for like a wide open touchdown that they missed. This is one they could have won by a bunch. So I thought it was a pretty solid performance. They found a way to win. And it could have been even bigger if they had executed a few things right. But this is what we were talking about, like not having necessarily your A game, but still winning a road game in conference play. Like, bravo. Yes, that's great.
Yeah, you pick up your first win on the road in Sunbelt play this season. It comes at a great time because now you need to go on the road this weekend and beat App State in Boone. It's always a tough place to play. But JMU now 2-0 in Norfolk since entering the FBS, 3-0 against Ricky Ronnie since entering the FBS as well. So Dukes kind of own ODU in this series. And a big reason for that was their second half performance. I know, like, there were times, like, the offense played a very good brand of football, but they were bailed out. Maybe not bailed out. I don't want to sound too like the offense did enough to win. They put up
Yes.
35 points. They did a very good job. And the defense pitched a shutout up until like the ODU last drive in the second half. JMU's defense, I think, is the reason they won this game. JMU's defense was getting shredded in the first half, absolutely obliterated. This is the drive chart from the first half. Touchdown, punt, good job. JMU answered those two punts with, where is it? Field goal, touchdown. So that's very good. So you get up there. And then touchdown, they throw a pick. JMU punts off of those two possessions. Touchdown, field goal to end the first half. So you didn't, they scored on 3 of their drives. They gave you the ball back on 3 of their drives, but scoring on 50% of drives, pretty solid in what you expected to be a close game. But then the key is the second half. Punt. And JMU answered those with 2 touchdowns, and that was enough to push them to the win.
Yeah, heck of a second half from the defense. Eric O'Neill, Kyrie Mans, both phenomenal off the edge. Chris Sheeran had another great game. He's been very, very steady. That dude was in the portal forever. I followed Chris Sheeran like last December, November. He was tweeting his film out constantly. No takers. And it was like, man, JMU needs a DB. Like, what's the deal? They finally go get him, Virginia native, and he's just been the steadiest presence in the secondary. But there are a bunch of other teams in Virginia, near Virginia, anywhere in the FBS. They're like, why did we not take Chris Sheeran, who is actively trying to get someone to take him? So JMU, great job on that one, man. He's a really good player. He does everything they ask him to do. Just steady. I mean, I love the defense. I think Lyle Hempel's done an amazing job. And the offense kept the team afloat in the first half when the defense didn't have it. And then the defense kept the team afloat when the offense was kind of working through some stuff in the second half. Because it really did feel like one of the teams at some point in the second half was going to put a drive together or hit a big play and pull away. And it ended up being JMU, even though I think a lot of us, myself included, were fearful that ODU was going to hit one chunk play, but they weren't able to do it.
No, they weren't. Colton Joseph missed a ton of open receivers for ODU, which really helped JMU's defense. But at the end of the day, the Dukes made the play. They hit Ymir Knight. When that ball went into the air on that deep 64-yard touchdown, this is 5 minutes after Alonza had missed a wide open Cam Ross. And we were texting in our group chat, just put so much air under that. How do you miss that throw? And then you don't think you're going to get 2 wide open receivers like that. That is bad coaching on ODU's part. You cannot
They give
let
up
that
a
happen.
lot of chunk plays.
Like, insane. But then when Ymir's running wide open and I see Alonza gear up to pass it, I was like, nope, this is going to be another incompletion. He's lost it. There's nothing there, because I'm just such a pessimistic watcher. I'm such a pessimistic fan when I'm watching the game. And then he hit it, and I was at a bar in Charlotte, and there was, the South Carolina Mizzou game that was going on at the same time. Big crowd in the room over. I go crazy, and they all kind of look at me, laugh, look at the screen, and then see what happened. And they kind of go like approving nod, like, okay, that all right. That's cool. Good for you.
Well, it cracks me up because like Alonzo will miss a deep ball and then he'll have someone open again. He hit Ymir Knight in stride. And I feel like as fans, sometimes it's like, if you're 2 yards shorter on that one, man, like, it's okay. If he's that open, you have to hit the throw. But it was a perfect throw. He rolls out to his right, evades what pressure was coming from the left after he made a nice check, which Delvin talked about onto the house. And he threw a dime. And I think it's funny because like the Ross one, maybe he rushed that throw a little bit with some pressure or whatever because they were bringing pressure. And then, of course, JMU, instead of having like quick passes to beat pressure, they just run like 4 verts to beat pressure. So they're running like these go balls. And he just missed that one. He certainly had him. But I think when he's letting it go, it's a little closer, and then the receiver pulls away. So maybe it's a little bit harder from that perspective. But yeah, the Cam Ross one you want back. Maybe if it's Dollison runs underneath it since he seems to be the fastest player on the team. But they did hit a chunk play. Barnett was awesome running the ball. His like 50-yard touchdown run was sweet. And then better than that was his juke on that scramble late in the game before he had the rushing touchdown, where he scrambles out to his left. There's a defensive end there, and he just sort of stops. The defensive end stops, and then he cuts around him. Was like, oh, that's gross. Like we haven't seen that in a few weeks. Like you're healthy again. That was nice. And that's also when he snapped it with like 33 seconds on the play clock for just no reason. And it was like, what are we doing? The announcers are like, great chance to burn clock. And the dudes are like, nope. Snaps it, rolls out. I'm like, if he snaps it at 33 seconds and takes a sack, there's going to be some angry people on the internet. Instead, he like juked him and almost scored a touchdown. I was like, all right, like makes up for the fact that you probably should have waited 30 more seconds to do that.
I wish we could have captured Twitter reaction post Cam Ross missed deep ball.
Yeah.
And then post Ymir Knight touchdown throw. Because I imagine there were some people calling for Dylan Morris after he missed that deep ball to Cam Ross.
Delvin was saying he was about to if he missed the one to Ymir. But he did hit that one.
It was really great. I just can't get over the fact that Dean Kennedy ran it 47 times.
I'm just, they found a way to win. Like this is the one where they didn't have their perfect thing. Like ULM, they should have won that game. Georgia Southern, they probably should have had a chance to win that game late, and they didn't. So for them to make some mistakes and still win, it shows me a little bit of growth and development, which is nice.
Yes, great stuff. Was a good win, a needed win, because now if you beat App State, and there's a strong chance Georgia Southern loses this weekend at Coastal Carolina, because under Clay Helton, they have struggled on the road like mightily. Not only that, they're one of the worst November teams in all of the Sun Belt since Clay Helton has taken over. I'm just saying there's a slight chance. JMU got to beat App State this weekend, though. That's the first thing. Then you got to beat Marshall too. But we'll focus on App State as the Dukes travel to Boone, North Carolina. A 2:30 p.m. kick against the Mountaineers of Appalachian State.
That's great. That's great in terms of like sunlight and everything.
Yeah, very good. I mean, especially in the mountain too. Like you got to think the world's curvature, the Earth's curvature a little bit, and then you're at an elevated place. You got to think, does that help or hurt when the sun sets because of the Earth's curvature? I'm not entirely sure, but it should be fine with the 2:30 kick, where the Dukes taking on the App State Mountaineers in a huge Sunbelt showdown. App State is playing for bowl game eligibility. They have 4 wins. They need to win their last 2 to make a bowl game, where JMU, of course, needs to win to keep their Sunbelt East hopes alive. There's still a pathway for them to even host a championship game still, but we'll get into that later in the podcast. App State, it's been a weird team. Aguilar has been phenomenal at times. Joey Aguilar, their starting quarterback, the preseason conference player of the year, has been at times. He throws a lot of interceptions. The offense has been kind of hit or miss. They're going to be without their star wide receiver, Caden Robinson. He got hurt, I think, a week or 2 ago, so he's out for the season, actually, and that's going to be a massive blow to App State's offense, especially in this one, especially with the Joey Aguilar, who puts the ball into harm's way a little bit, and it's a JMU defense that loves picking the ball off. So that will be an interesting matchup on one side, and on the other side, App State's defense has left a lot to be desired this year, which is quite interesting considering head coach Sean Elliott has brought back a ton of returners, a ton of production from a year ago. But the defense just has not played well this year. They rank 152nd out of 154 teams in the FBS in stopping the run. They just are not. They're not really good at anything defensively, and it gives an opportunity for JMU to go in there, control the clock, just punch the ball down their throat, and go on for a good win. Now, I feel like we were saying this last year as well when we were going into the App State game, where App State wasn't great against the run, and we were just like, run the ball, do this, do that, and you can win the game. And JMU kind of laid an egg. So there's still that potential. Boone was kind to JMU the last time they were there, but it's not kind to a lot of teams. A very tough place to play, Kid Brewer Stadium. Should be a really, really good game. And now that I've talked all of that, and Bennett lost us, then came back to us. Thank you for rejoining us here. Essentially just talking about the overarching themes of this game. Aguilar throws picks, but that offense has been good at times, has been bad at times, and the defense has just kind of been bad.
Yeah, rivalry game, you throw the records out, but then you look at App State's EPA stats, and I think you bring the record back in.
Exactly.
And I think App kind of stinks. So it's one that is going to be very interesting because App's going to be a little bit healthier outside of Caden Robinson. They haven't played a game since November 7th. It's like a 16-day break because they
Was that
played
a Thursday game?
Thursday game and then a bye. So JMU has played twice in that span. One is only 2 days after, so essentially the same. But 16 days is a long break. It's like a wonderful vacation. That's more PTO than most people get in a whole year.
You really got to wonder the rust factor, you know. The bye did come at a perfect time according to Sean Elliott. I'm assuming he said that because every coach says
Elliott?
Sean Clark. My bad.
I think we might be more scared if it was Sean Elliott.
I said Sean Elliott earlier. Let me amend what I said earlier. Sean Clark. When you were gone, I said Sean Elliott. He was the Georgia State coach. I'm just remembering his crazy antics on the sideline. I'm wishing he was back in the Sun Belt.
He would maybe be more scary than Sean Clark. Sean Clark with 16 days feels a little bit like Lou Rowe, like not preparing for Fordham.
Oh, remember that game? He didn't give him the scout until like the day before the game.
That's a deep cut for people that are listening here. They had like a 15-day break, and he gave him the scout for the other team like the night before, and they lose by like 35. He was trying to focus on themselves. Oof.
Fire him then. How did he end up another 2 seasons in Harrisonburg after that?
I don't know, man. But anyway, Sean Clark, hot seat.
Not Elliott.
Right. They haven't played in a long time, so maybe they're a little more rested. But like they cannot stop the run. They're bad when they play capable teams. It is a rivalry game. It's hard to play in Boone. Aguilar, when he's not throwing picks, pretty dangerous, has a nice arm. So I don't know. Maybe there's some stuff there. But like on paper, this is a great matchup because JMU is like the best team in the country in turnover margin. They are the best team in the country. App State's one of the worst with turnover margin. They give the ball away constantly. And I know like some people were pointing to, well, they just, their last game, I think,
their last game was a 28-20 win over ODU.
Yes, okay, that's the one. ODU in that game lost the turnover battle 4-1. They turned the ball over 4 times in App State territory and still had a chance to drive down and tie the game. So like yeah, you could lose to App. Like it's possible, and it's a proud program, and they need to win these next 2 to get into a bowl, and they're coming off the bye. So there's some reasons why this is like, okay, I could see this being competitive. At the same time, like they stink this year. Yeah. Go take a punch in this rivalry because I don't think it's going to be often that you have an App State that is this bad. Sean Clark's never had him this bad. Like he might end up losing his job. Like App State has too many resources, too impressive of like, facilities and home stadium and fan passion. Like you're not going to get many chances to just take a knockout punch on the road against App State. But this is one because they can't stop the run. They turn the ball over a lot. They're deeply, deeply flawed, and their best offensive player is out for the season.
Let me do a little psychology of this game too, because this could easily be like one of the quote unquote spots, like a letdown spot, because you can look ahead. Oh, this is a bad App State game. You can look ahead to Marshall because that game is going to be the big game. Kind of similar to what the ULM game was earlier in the season. That felt like a letdown spot. That felt like just not taking ULM seriously like JMU should have in that game. Very lucky that this is a rivalry game. Very lucky that this is a game that I think every player cares about. Eric O'Neill was talking about it on ESPN Richmond, where Matt Josephs asked him, is ODU, did you know about this rivalry right when you transferred in? Did you know about it? And he was like, yeah. Like day one, they were kind of telling me about this ODU rivalry and stuff. And they were telling me about the App State rivalry. Like unprompted was like, and App State. Because I think JMU has a lot of anger from last year. And I know it's not a lot of the same team, but I wouldn't be shocked if some of the players that are currently on Indiana who still have a good relationship with the players on JMU are texting him this week. Like, go take care of business. Go get some revenge for last year. Go avenge that loss. Go punch him in the mouth. And with George Pettaway back there, Wayne Knight, Joby Mallory, they can punch App State in the mouth. I said it onto the house. I'll say it here. It's not too hot of a take to say George Pettaway will get a hundo, but I think Wayne Knight has the potential to get over 100 yards. He's coming off a game where he averaged 6.7 yards per carry. This is one of, if not the worst rush defense in the nation, according to EPA allowed per rush. It's by far the worst in the Sun Belt. Look, I think Wayne Knight is poised for a huge game, and we'll hear all about, what the products from Smyrna, Delaware are able to do.
They've also given up, I think, 5 pass plays of 60-plus yards this year, which is like second worst in the nation. So you can hit them. It kind of sets up perfectly for JMU's plan, right, of run the ball, and then, like, if there's pressure or a crowded box, just, like, over the top, deep ball, deep ball, deep ball, deep ball. So I think they could take some deep shots here and have success. They've given up a ton of explosive run plays, so Pettaway, Knight, those guys could definitely break out. On paper, it's a really good matchup for JMU. I think your issue is, like, you got to avoid stupid mistakes. And then there's the fear of, like, App State figures some stuff out in the bye week because the talent's there. They just have been, like, weirdly off this year. There's a reason they were picked to win the East in the preseason. They also know that they need to win the next 2 to make a bowl game. So there's some stuff there. I think it could be a dogfight, but I do like on paper, I think JMU matches up very, very well with this particular App State team. Last year, App State, their weakness, you mentioned it, was stopping the run. But that JMU team sucked at running the ball. Like, they're just very bad at running the ball. This team's so much better. This team's so much better at running the ball. So that's a huge plus.
And the offensive line is peaking, which I think is going to be massive in this game. Yeah. They have found their rhythm pass blocking. Josh Toner's coming off of his best back-to-back pass blocking performances of the season. The offensive line as a whole has played exceptionally well. The interior of the line has taken a much-needed step forward. Tanner Morris split some snaps with Brett Davis after coming back from an injury. But it really, for the most part, looks like they've kind of slowed down the whole swapping of players. Carter Sweezy didn't have that many snaps. It was mostly Josh Toner at left guard. It was mostly Cole Potts at right guard with Ramil at left and Pat McMurtry at right. Joseph Simmons kind of rotated in a lot, but it feels like for the most part, they've got their guys who are playing a lion's share of the snaps. And I think that has benefited them to find a rhythm and to have their best performances of the season these last 2 weeks. And that's going to be really big because you're going to have to pave huge runways for your running backs and give Alonza at least 2.5 seconds in the pocket in this game if JMU wants to win. And App State, I don't think they pulled a Lou Rowe. I think they, for the last 16 days, have focused on this JMU team. So, Dean Kennedy, don't get cute. Don't outthink yourself. But also, there probably needs to be a few wrinkles in this playbook because App State will know what your bread and butters are.
I thought they had some good wrinkles against ODU, so I'm interested to see what they can bring out. I also think, like, I'm excited about just basic plays, like, just like an inside zone, some easy little runs where it's like, can your O lineman just body them? Because I think they can. I think they can really dominate the line of scrimmage. And I'm interested to see what the defense can do against a turnover-happy quarterback. I know Lyle Hemphill's probably loving the film that he's seen so far this week. Yeah.
Kyrie Mann's coming off of his best performance. Eric O'Neill coming off of a great performance. Can they push the pocket? Can they impact Joey Aguilar? Who's getting a pick? Let's say it now. Who is getting an interception? Call your shot.
I think Spence gets another.
I'm going Jordan Taylor. Did you see how close he was in the ODU game?
He's been playing nice. He's been getting a lot better this year.
Do you see his almost pick against ODU went right through his hands?
I don't know if that's a great sign, but
one's got to break his way.
He would be good to get one for sure.
Yeah. All right. So anything else you got to add on App State?
No, it's a winnable game. It's going to be a fun one. Rivalries are dope.
All right. So we'll quickly step aside for a little commercial break, and we'll be back on the other side to wrap up some injuries, hit news or snooze, and do listener questions. Check out To the House with JMU Hall of Famer Delvin Joyce. To the House drops every Monday, and it's bringing you the best content around JMU football. Delvin gives his takes and his insights on everything happening around JMU football. To the House, new episodes drop every Monday. Subscribe to the JMU Sports News Network to never miss an episode. Welcome back into the JMU Sports News podcast. It's time for the injury update portion of the podcast. I don't think there's too many crazy injuries. Tanner Morris left I forget even who we played before ODU.
Georgia State.
That's right. That's why I forgot about him. It's Georgia State. Even Atlanta forgot about Georgia State. Atlanta doesn't even know they have a school in Atlanta. Let me stop. Georgia State, Tanner Morris left in that game with an injury. He did return, played some snaps in this game, rotated with Brett Davis at the center position. He should be good to go. Carter Sweezy, he came back for the Georgia State game, played limited amount of snaps last game against ODU as well. So the offensive line starting to come together. Still no word on whether or not Tyshawn Wyatt will play. I think at this point in the season, he's not playing.
What was that about, though? They were like, he really wants to play in the last 4, unless they like didn't know the rules and they think the last 4 include Sun Belt Championship and bowl game, in which case he comes back this week, and that would be very funny. But I find that hard to believe.
I find that very hard to believe because you have a whole person on your.
Somebody would have told them.
Yeah, exactly. So Tyshawn Wyatt, that is an insane injury for Tyshawn Wyatt. He went down just over a year ago, and he has been rehabbing 375 days now. More than that.
Yeah.
Since his injury. That's a tough injury, and he has not played. I don't even know if he's practicing with the team.
Kind of unclear if they talked about him wanting to use another year, if he wanted to use that here or elsewhere.
He did enter the portal, didn't he?
Last year, yeah.
And I think this is why he didn't get a pickup, because
for sure
he was out for the year.
Yeah.
He's gonna be out. Any other injuries around the team? Jacob Dobbs.
Dobbs didn't play.
Love Torres Jones.
Yeah, Torres Jones has been filling in great.
The linebacking core looks fantastic. Jacob Dobbs did dress and try to go. He went through warmups, and apparently he was dressed on the sidelines for the first half and then changed into street clothes for the second half. I don't know what's going on there because Chesney said for the Georgia State game, if it was up to Dobbs, he would have played against Georgia State. But apparently, even despite being good enough to play against Georgia State, wasn't good enough to. We got to create the Chesney-o-meter when it comes to injuries.
It's just all
because this dude has never said a right thing about injuries. I don't know if it's gamesmanship. I don't know if it's his approach, but Iowa Day has played through this injury before. It's all about it's about injury management, not getting him back healthy. Apparently, it's about getting him back healthy. He's out for this season, and he's going to use it. Tyshawn Wyatt really wants to play the last 4 games of the season. Yeah, I really want to do a lot of things, but does it mean I'm able to? No. What are we doing?
It's weird. So we'll see. I think Dobbs will play at some point again this year because it's his final season of college football, and I feel like they're going to have to like rip his helmet away to not have him come back at some point. So I think he'll be out there at some point. But Torres Jones is filling in great. Logan Kyle battling through injury. He had a brace on his knee and then just got, or leg, and then or sleeve or something. Maybe it's from that cut, and then got clobbered on that same leg on like a crossing route. And still recovered the onside kick later in the game with like one hand.
That was an insane onside recovery. Also, that dude gets clobbered every time he touches the football.
He has really taken some hits this year. That guy is a tough person.
Yeah, gotta love that. Any other injuries I'm trying to think of?
Those were the main ones that stood out, I think.
Everyone else healthy? Healthy enough?
For the most
All right.
part.
You want to take it to listener questions or news or snooze?
Let's do listener questions.
All right, listener questions. I'm pulling up the Twitter to pull them up now because I was unprepared. We got 7 of them. There we go. All right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, considering we put it out 30 minutes before we recorded. We got to just like schedule those for like
I know.
Tuesday
I was
nights.
Thinking that when I posted it this morning. I was like, why am I not scheduling this at Tuesday at 7?
JMU RVA, do you think we see more tempo from the offense this week? All that talk about conditioning in the preseason. Offense is night and day when they go slow versus up tempo.
They might get some up tempo. I don't know.
It also like you got to pick your spots with tempo because like, yes, the conditioning, but also it's a very different beast being conditioned to play a football game and being conditioned to play an up tempo 60-minute football game where you're running like 100+ plays, like 2 very different beasts. Also, when you go up tempo, it really limits what you're able to do in your playbook. And so depending on the spots, you just have to be very, very tough about it. Also, another port, because this is what, as a Seahawks fan, I remember the Russell Wilson era when they would play regular tempo all game and then there'd be down 7 in the final drive and they'd go up tempo and they'd slice through the defense like butter. And it's like, why are you not doing this all game? And they have reasons. You can't really play at that tempo, but also like the defense is in a different set. Maybe we'll see more, but I don't think they need to go up tempo against App State. I think the key to winning this game on the road, getting out of there with a win, is running the heck out of the football and draining the clock and limiting their possessions. Like I think just win the damn football game.
I like that.
JMU RVA with another. How many pre-snap penalties do we see from the Dukes on first down this week? Bonus point if they do it coming out of a TV timeout.
There are going to be some false starts. I feel confident in that.
All right. Against ODU, they had no defensive penalties. They had 6 penalties on offense, a delay of game, 3 false starts, a face mask, and an unnecessary roughness. 6 penalties for 46 yards.
Okay. Could be worse.
3 of those came on the second drive of the game.
It's a rivalry there. Fired
for
up.
the podcast folks, for the listeners. Bennett just shook his head disapprovingly. JMU RVA again. Do you think we see a UNC-like performance from the Dukes? Seems like we were holding stuff back for this game moment.
I don't think so. Well, I mean, like they might come out and play very well. I don't think they were holding anything back as they're through 10 games and they've lost 2 of them. If they were holding stuff back against ULM or Georgia Southern, that's a slap on the wrist or something. Give them some. That's not good. I don't think they've been holding much back. They've called some creative plays. They've had 2 surprise onside kicks this year.
Yeah,
is it more than that? It's at
and
least 2.
The crazy 2-point conversions every.
They've done a million muddle huddle. Yeah, they've seemed like they're throwing a lot out there. I would expect them to continue to do that to try to win the East, but I don't think they've withheld a lot.
Can we talk about how teams just now aren't prepared for JMU's muddle huddle?
They're kind of sick though, with the snaps just way out to the side.
That one was insane. But
good.
It's so funny how ODU would line up in their muddle huddle and JMU would be perfectly ready and they'd come back in to do the field goal.
Well, I have a lot of respect for a team that shows up in a muddle huddle and actually does something out of it. Like Oregon's done that for a while. So many teams do muddle huddles and then just go and kick. It's just kick your extra point. There's no, you're never going to do anything. Just kick. Waste everyone's time.
I also, JMU RVA, I'm not coming at you when I'm being upset about this, but I hate the holding stuff back because we said it all the time with Donnie Kirkpatrick, his secret playbook. He's waiting for the playoffs. I was one of them. There was a time when I was saying stuff like that, but the goal for the coaching staff each and every week is to win that football game. Now, does Dean Kennedy maybe add some more wrinkles during the week, and do they practice maybe some more exotic looks on offense and things of that sort? Sure, but they work with the playbook they have every week, and it's not like, okay, pages 5 through 10 we're not going to use this week because we want to use next week. That's just not the case. Against ULM, they weren't holding anything back. They were putting everything they had, seeing what stuck, and trying to win that football game. They weren't thinking, all right, if we can escape out of here with a 1-point win and not expose half of our playbook because of the App State game in November, then that's a win. That's great for us. Coaches aren't thinking like that. Fans, they're never holding stuff back. They are doing everything they can to win a football game. And we're going to see some crazy stuff that we won't see ever again. We're going to see a play that we haven't seen all season. We won't see after this. We'll probably see a play that we've seen already, like a crazy play, maybe a flea flicker in there. But JMU has not been holding stuff back for this late in the season, because you know what? If you lose a game that you should have won, like a Georgia State game, or maybe earlier on in the season against Coastal or something like that, because you were holding something back, it makes this game mean nothing. So coaches never hold anything back.
Yeah, they're putting it all out there. I also think, just going quickly back to the muddle huddle, camera operators have yet to adjust as well.
Bennett's just stewing that whole time I'm talking about holding stuff back about muddle huddles.
No,
Oh, you know what really grinds my gears about
we don't
muddle
see any
huddles?
of them. It's just like they're in the that's a 2-point conversion. It's like figure it out.
Yeah, like that.
The camera
We didn't
operators in
see
this game suck though.
we didn't see the Gabriel Hollingsworth conversion live. We had to wait for the replay.
Yeah, or like 40% of deep balls for both teams were just missed.
Delvin was talking about the Dylan Williams catch, which was like a 16-yard out on the
Yeah, I
far
saw it on
hash
replay.
that Alonzo put on the mark. And I was like, you saw that? Good for you, because I assumed he caught it. I had no clue.
I didn't even know who he's targeting. It's like, is that picked? I don't know.
Like, was it intercepted? Did it hit the ground? He's on the ground. There's a defensive back right behind him. What happened? I don't know. And then they're like, that's a catch. Okay, thank you.
So stupid, dude.
Justin Reed, Southern Miss, Ball State, Charlotte, all have fired their coaches, and everyone is expecting Mac Brown to. Is Mac Brown expected to leave North Carolina?
There's some rumblings.
Okay. At the end of the year, I have not heard that. Any other teams JMU faced going to lose their coach too? Seems like we're a curse for them. ODU might.
ODU
App
could,
State might.
App State could. I don't
Marshall
think
could. Marshall,
yeah,
if they melt down epically, they could get rid of Charles Huff.
They could, or Charles Huff could leave positively if they would. He seems like he's trying to leave, from what I have heard and read.
He's the funniest coach. Every year he's on the hot seat, and then he makes up for it the next year with like a really good team, and then the next year he's bad again.
He simultaneously every season seems to be on the hot seat, but then also a candidate for P4 jobs. It's like, which one is it? So that's a little weird. Anything could happen. I will say though, I don't think they're like coach killers. Like some of those teams are just bad. Southern Miss had already fired their coach before JMU even played them. So they
in anticipation.
In anticipation, that's true. But I think the point to make more so, maybe at least my takeaway is like, what a favorable schedule that like half the teams have maybe are making coaching moves.
Also,
that seems like good.
What a performance by Jeff Bourne hiring these last crop of coaches.
My God,
he's not had to fire a coach since. Well, was Mickey technically fired, or did they leave under mutual circumstances?
I think it was I think if Mickey could have stayed, he would have.
So, but like he hired Everett Withers, who left for a P4 job, hired Mike Houston, who left for not P4 job. Oh, my bad. Way ahead of myself. Hired Everett Withers, who left for an FBS job. Mike Houston, who left for an FBS job. Kurt Signetti, who left for a Power 4 job and may now be coaching the #1 team in the nation. Who knows after what happens this Saturday? And like Charlotte went through Will Healy and Biff Poggi, and they whiffed on both of those in epic proportions. Meanwhile, JMU has brought on Kurt Signetti and Bob Chesney in that same like rough hiring cycle.
Yeah, they've been cooking.
So I think it speaks on what a favorable schedule, but also it speaks on like their ability to hire good football coaches, where around the country at this level, it seems like it's a less than 50% hit rate.
And like, I don't think they deserve all the credit for being coach killers, but like Ball State losing 63-7 did not help Mike New keep his job, right? Biff Poggi losing the home opener and then claiming he had a better team and going into that game with a bunch of injured players because he thought JMU was going to be a hard opponent. Not great. And then UNC, if Mac Brown retires or they move on, like giving up 70 to a G5 school is very much going to play a reason in why fans are upset this year.
Ryan, JMU 2019 at Ryan, JMU 2018. With the season coming to an end, which position should the coaching staff recruit or look to? What are you laughing at?
The guy who's like, you guys just call me Ryan. And you're like, Ryan, JMU.
Staff recruiter. Look in the port. Let me start. With the season coming to an end, this is Bennett's bread and butter.
I had actually, before this question came in, I had like jotted this down on a piece of notepaper in boredom. So I was
Bennett is a dog when it comes to portal tracking. It's kind of scary. This is where he makes his money, folks. This is where JMU Sports News separates from the pack with Bennett's unwavering and borderline crazy addiction to the transfer portal. With the season coming to an end, which position should the coaching staff recruit or look to in the portal? As if we finish strong, we might lose some players we don't expect. Wide receiver, OL, DL come to mind to replace or fill from the transfer portal if we lose someone. So who should the Dukes focus in
Yeah,
on? How should they go about
well
attacking
said.
this transfer portal season?
You got to be able to retain some guys. So obviously, like Barnett's a big one. If Barnett transfers, you need a QB. If Eric O'Neill transfers, you need a defensive end. You probably need a defensive end anyway. So my like ranking of positions of need: wide receiver, because Dawson and Cam Ross are graduating. You're going to need some help at wide receiver. Offensive line, you're losing some quality players. You're going to want depth there. They'll probably add at the O line. But the two are pretty much wide receiver and defensive end that really jump out right now. And then would expect them to also add at like linebacker and corner. But the really the two that are like, oh, you're going to need to add some dudes would be wide receiver and defensive end. I think those would be the two top positions of need, regardless of who leaves, just because the graduation losses with like Kyrie Mans, Lloyd Summerall at defensive end, and then wide receiver Dollison and Ross are two of your best. So even if you keep Ymir Knight, you're going to want to add some players because you haven't seen a ton of production from Taji Hudson or Maxwell Moss or even really Dylan Williams, who I think could be great, but you still probably want another veteran, at least one, maybe two in there.
I like it. I'm trying to look at offensive line to see how many they're losing on the OL.
They're going to have some good players. So they've got, like, in theory, you keep Jesse Ramel, right? Ramil. Which one is it? Is it Ramel or Ramil?
Just stick with whichever one you want.
All right. Carter Sweezy. If you keep him, that's huge. Riley Robel will come back from injury. Brett Davis has been pretty solid at center. Joseph Simmons has been nice. But, like, McMurtry's been phenomenal this year. So I wouldn't be shocked if they look for, like, another tackle. Do you get Tyshawn Wyatt back?
Josh Toner played some right tackle at the end of last season. So
Toner
and he's been playing guard this season. You also have Deacon Rawls, who we have not seen, but he's 6'5".
He's okay.
He's 361 pounds. But like odds are we're not going to see him for another 2 to 3 years, probably.
They have gotten they gave like Jacoby Campbell some reps last week, maybe. So maybe a youngster to keep an eye on along the offensive line. I think he's a tackle. So they've got some good players that are coming back, but again, I think they'll add a little bit there just to have some additional depth.
Yeah, like Tanner Morris is gone. Quincy Jenkins, who hasn't seen a ton of field time, but has been there at times, he's gone. Tyshawn Wyatt is a 50-50 on if he's gone. Then you got Luke Potma, who hasn't really played a ton, but is another like depth piece that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Potts is gone.
Right.
So Pat McMurtry is gone. Ramel may be able to enter the portal. Who knows? Like he's played good enough at a left tackle spot, and left tackle is such a desirable position. But if you're able to keep like your underclassmen, Sweezy, Toner on the inside, Brett Davis, Riley Robel, and maybe bring back Tyshawn Wyatt and Joseph Simmons, I think you're looking pretty good.
Yeah. So that's not the biggest position of need right now.
What is our final? This is from Alex. What is our final record for the football season after App State and Marshall? Do you see Georgia Southern losing another game? And to who? Who do we play in the Sun Belt Championship?
Good questions. What's your take?
I think we win both of the games to finish out the season. I think we play in the Sun Belt Championship. I think Georgia Southern loses this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we play Louisiana in the championship game, but I think that's good for us because unfortunately they've lost their quarterback. I think they can run through the West with a backup, but I think they'll run into us in the championship game. And it'll be a real bummer that they don't have Woolridge, who was the best group of 5 quarterback. According to PFF.
Is he really the highest rated?
I'm pretty sure he's the highest rated.
That's crazy. I'm not taking that guy first pick in the draft.
In the group of 5?
Yeah, no, I would take I like Memphis's quarterback, Seth Hennigan. I like Tulane's guy, Mensa, I think.
Joel? He switched sports.
I like Alonzo more. I like McLeod more. He's good though. He's good.
I'm now confirming what I said.
Is he really the highest rated? Wow.
Give me 1 second.
His QBR is good. If I'm not mistaken.
All right. So of quarterback. Yes, I was right.
I would take Army's guy within their system.
Give me a second. Of the quarterbacks who've played 20% of their team snaps or more in the group of 5, Ben Woldridge is the number 1 quarterback according to pass grade by PFF.
Okay.
Brendan Lewis, the Nevada quarterback, is first in overall offensive grade. Woldridge is third.
Who's second?
Devin Dampier.
Yeah, I would take Dampier over him too. That guy is disgusting. Jason Beck. Shout out to the Beck family. They coached at UVA. Jason Beck did. Just a great family. But he's an incredible offensive coordinator. The stuff he's doing with Dampier. That team's silly.
That was a long-winded way to say Louisiana will be missing their quarterback in the championship game when they play JMU.
Dude, do you think they win both their final 2 against Troy and ULM?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Because if they don't, South Alabama controls its own destiny.
So they don't. So South Alabama does not control its own destiny.
No, they need him to lose. It's like the JMU thing. But JMU could be hosting like 7-5 South Alabama in the Sun Belt Championship.
And I would feel so good about that game.
How funny would it be if the West sort of collapses and it's 7-5 South Alabama and JMU does the chaos scenario where they're 9-3 because Keith Gill's just like kicking himself. His conference is putting out like 8 combined losses in a championship game.
He's probably JMU must be kicking themselves too because the college football playoff rankings came out last night and Boise State is the number 1 rated group of 5 team, and they would be even if JMU was there. But like, if JMU is undefeated right now, which is a huge if, but both of their losses were winnable games coming into the season. You know what I mean?
Yes, they would be ranked over Army. They would be the second highest ranked.
They'd be like 18th.
Yeah, maybe they'd be like close to the top 15.
And like, then all you need is Boise State to fall in the Mountain West Championship game, which Boise State has shown they are susceptible to some. Like the San Jose State game was way too close for way too long against a bad San Jose State team.
San Jose State's okay.
Okay, if you're Boise State and you're expected to be competing in the college football playoff,
did in their defense, they beat them by 21.
Yeah, but it was okay. Whatever. You know what I mean? That game was close.
I know. I don't think
you tuned into that game at one point. You tuned into that San Jose State, Boise State game because you thought San Jose State had the potential to pull off the upset.
Yeah, I was getting myself in a crazy scenario where everything broke JMU's way for a second.
That would be way too many things to break their way.
It could happen.
Yeah, you would need Boise to lose.
It's not going to, but it could happen.
But make a parlay of that. Throw a $1 bet on Boise to lose the Mountain West Championship game, Army to lose the.
I don't even think that's a market I could get. I guess I could take someone else to win it.
No, wait until the game lines come out, and then money line Boise to lose, money line Army to lose, money line Tulane to lose.
Army and Tulane are playing each other.
So then there you go. They can't even do it.
Well, no. If Tulane could lose to like Memphis on Thanksgiving and then win the AAC with 3 losses, or if Army loses to Notre Dame by like 60.
Okay, we're going way down a rabbit hole here.
Okay, let's get to News or Snooze, which is
we have one last question.
Anyway. Okay, sorry.
Alyssa, what kind of NIL bag, if any, will AB3 need to stay given he has a strong performance the remainder of the year? I like this question.
Some sort of bag.
I think he would need to be the highest paid player on JMU.
Yeah, that makes sense. He should be.
Positional value, play. Yeah. If he finishes out the year, what he did against ODU, I think he definitely will be bringing in a good bag.
He's also one where he's a redshirt sophomore. So in theory, he could cook again next year and then play his final season somewhere else and also have a JMU degree, right? Because it would be 4 years, you would have a degree. Yeah. So I think maybe that's something. I don't know exactly what he'll do, but I do think there would be like pretty clear value for him having another year in the same system, a place where he knows he can play well. Like if he has another good season, he's going to get P4 offers his final season.
I also think the fact that he didn't leave this offseason speaks volumes to his desire to want to stay and see out at least a JMU degree. Here's a question for you, and then we'll move to News or Snooze.
Yeah.
How do you think JMU fans would view him if he plays next year at JMU gets his JMU degree, and then decides to transfer to a P4. Do you think JMU fans are accepting of that because he got the JMU degree? He played 3 years here, was here on roster for 4 years. Do you think they'd be accepting of that, or do you think they'd hold resentment over him, much like we do with, or not we collective as JMU fans? I definitely do not. Let me get this on the record. I love Indiana. Do you, like how some JMU fans hold resentment over Pons or Kamara or Fisher or Walker, or I don't know if Carpenter really fits that so much, but do you think, how do you think JMU fans view Alonzo Barnett if he leaves for that final year of eligibility?
It probably depends what they end up accomplishing. Like if they win the Sun Belt title this year and next year or something, or like make a playoff appearance next year, I think they're going to be pretty pleased. And then it all depends too on like, is Chesney staying? Is JC Evans staying? Like, are you getting, who's the new quarterback? Because it's a lot easier to be like, to have your guy leave in McLeod when Barnett comes in and plays very well. It's like, cool. All right, whatever. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to Snoozers. News presented by Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli, right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center, next door to that Costco. Next time you're in Harrisonburg, check out Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli for all of the best things you need for a game day or for just a beautiful day in Harrisonburg. Check out Cinnamon Bear right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. Hit me with some Snoozers news. Let's do it.
Okay. There were good quotes this week, but I didn't pull any. So I'm going to go mostly G5. We're going to talk playoff picture. We're going to go big picture. News or snooze. Playoff rankings come out. We've got 2 Mountain West teams ranked, Boise State and UNLV. 2 American teams ranked, Army and Tulane.
They're all American.
No teams in the MAC. No teams in Conference USA. No teams in the Sun Belt. News or snooze that the Sun Belt is, we're looking here, November 20th. No Sun Belt teams ranked in the college football playoff rankings.
News, because coming into the season, there was a lot of talk from Sun Belt circles that this was, the premier group of 5 team. The numbers may even still say that, where the Sun Belt is a very good group of 5 conference. But the issue is when you kind of hang your hat on one team in the West and one team in the East, Texas State and JMU, and they fall in some games that they maybe shouldn't fall in, all of a sudden your premier teams that may have the best talent are on the outside looking in. Louisiana is receiving some votes in the AP top 25. JMU is receiving some votes in the AP top 25. But at this point in the year, the AP top 25 just does not matter. So that's cool and all, but you're not getting the votes where you need them to be. It's newsworthy, but at the same time, it's not like worrisome, because next year, just as easily as they don't have any teams ranked, they can easily have, the front runner to be the college football playoff representative. It just, a couple games didn't break the top tier teams' way, like Texas State and JMU's, but Louisiana's still nipping on the heels right there at the cusp of the top 25 by the college football playoff. But it is kind of funny that they talk so much. We did. Every fan podcast across the Sun Belt was talking trash about the Sun Belt being the top tier conference, and they're just not right now, according to the college football playoff rankings. They're still better than Conference USA. They're still better than a lot of these other conferences, but the American just has such good top tier, and they have like 3 good top tier teams. Now the bottom of the American is very bad.
So bad. Dude.
Like, where from top to bottom, the Sun Belt is so good.
Like, there's a lot of bad in the American.
Yeah, but their top 3 teams are like super duper good and beat up bad on the bad teams. And so their metrics look good. The college football playoff committee likes them. So they get these rankings. But like, if you put Tulane and JMU on a neutral field, I don't think it's a blowout in favor of Tulane. I don't know if JMU's winning that game, but I don't think that Tulane is like a 21-point team better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting stuff, because the Sun Belt, part of the reason I brought this up, because they sent 1 million teams to bowls last year. Wasn't it like 12 or something?
Didn't they have a losing record?
Yeah, but it was like 1 million teams are getting to bowls. They've already got 6 that are bowl eligible this year, and it's possible they get to like 8 or even 10. Again, I think only Georgia State, Troy, and Southern Miss are like out of bowl contention, but everyone else, ODU could still technically make one. Coastal's 5-5, App State's 4-5. ULM's 5-5, South Alabama's 5-5. Like, pretty good chance that I think South Alabama is like Southern Miss this weekend or something too. So they're going to get some of these teams into bowls again. We'll see how the record goes there, but they don't have anyone who's like that top-notch team this year. It's interesting. Although last year, if they had this playoff and JMU was eligible, JMU at 11-1, win over Virginia. If they had played Troy in the Sun Belt Championship, 12-1, probably gets the spot, to be honest with you. So I also agree they shouldn't really worry that much.
I think it's also just so volatile at the group of 5 level. Where like this year, it's Boise State. They're going to lose Ashton Genty to the draft, and they're going to fall down a little bit. And then the next year, it could be a Sun Belt team. And then the next year, heck, it could be a Conference USA team. And then the next year, it's just so volatile where it's kind of a fool's errand to expect a single group of 5 conference to dominate the college football playoff conversation each and every year when it's just one spot for the group of 5.
That's fair. I think JMU, so this is my next snooze. I think they are 6th in ESPN's FPI among group of 5 teams. News or snooze that JMU is in the top, essentially the top 5. They're basically tied with Army and FPI of these metrics.
Snooze.
You're snoozing it. Here's what's interesting to me about this.
You love your metrics, and I love my EPA. We should call you the SP Plus King.
I love my metrics. The other thing about these teams, though, Tulane, a lot of resources, good head coach. Boise State, a lot of resources, good head coach. Who else we got in here? We got UNLV, which has a ton of resources, good head coach. Is there going to be just this upper tier, like for years to come? I know you talked about the volatility, but like Boise State can go get players. Tulane can go get players. JMU's collective seems like they can go get some really good players. Is there going to be an upper tier that has like every year they're kind of vying for a spot? Is JMU in that?
Yeah.
Or is there still like, is Boise, Tulane, are they still a little bit above?
No, I think that's a great question. I think JMU's in that upper tier of group of 5 teams. JMU came into this year despite having an entire roster turnover as a team expected to be competing for the college football playoff spot. And they are, and they did up until the inexplicable loss to ULM. But I do think, that's a really good point. I think they have the NIL support. I think they have the coaching staff support. I think they have the athletic director support to consistently be a top tier team. I still do think there is this volatility though around the group of 5 teams,
For sure.
where even if you are a top tier team, like there is one spot for you. If you lose a game, you're out.
Could be 2 this year.
If you lose 2 games, you're out of the college football playoff discussion for the most part. So it's just so tough to have a team do that. Like in the last 15 years, we've only seen 2 teams have back-to-back undefeated seasons, UCF and Cincinnati.
It's hard to win a lot of games.
And eventually John Summerall's being poached. Eventually, I don't know
they
who
can go get another guy.
So can JMU. Like that's
that's what makes me wonder though, because they're more attractive than most jobs. Like Tulane pays well, like poaching from Troy.
Yeah, JMU will probably end up paying their next coach $1 million a year, which is good. Which is good for group of 5. Plus your collective support.
Up it.
But your collective support's really good.
Yeah,
and the assistant coaches pool is really good.
And fan base cares. Facilities are good.
Maybe the fan base cares a little too much.
Yeah.
They're booing them like Gardner Webb.
That's true. Standard is the standard. Okay, last one. We're talking about, JMU West, as people like to call it, even though that's a little unfair. Indiana playing Ohio State. Can the former Dukes on defense, can they slow down Ohio State's offense? Can they hang in there? What is your news or stews level on Indiana with this JMU core maybe making the college football playoff? Is that newsworthy for JMU in the brand?
Maybe making the college football playoff. Maybe.
If they lose by like 30 to Ohio State, I don't think they'll make it.
They're 5th. You think they fall that far?
Yeah, because they don't have any wins.
Get the they don't have any wins.
They don't. Like if they had beaten UNC, that would be their best win. That's what JMU has a better win than them.
Okay, that's a good point. With all of that being said, It is funny, like, listening to the broadcast, and they're just like, Mikael Kamara makes the tackle. The JMU transfer has been a stud this year and is an all Big Ten quality player. Pass over the middle, broken up by Aiden Fisher. The JMU transfer from Riverbend High School in Fredericksburg, Virginia, has been playing an exceptional
228-pounder.
All right. But, like, I do think it's helping the brand, and I do think they have a chance to take down Ohio State. Did you see the starting center for the Buckeyes?
I
For his
did. James
Achilles?
Carpenter's like, okay.
That whole defensive line licking its chops. Let's get after him. Also, Mikael Kamara was the third best defensive lineman on this team a year ago, and he is an all Big Ten quality player.
I am bummed though that JMU lost to ULM, because if they were one loss, I do think they would probably be ranked in the college football playoff rankings and like on the fringe of making it. If they're undefeated, they'd be right there. It would be really fun at this point in November to be daydreaming about, like, could they play in Bloomington? Like, that would be crazy.
Let's
Made
hope.
for TV.
Let's hope Indiana falters down the stretch here. They don't make the college football playoff, and somehow there's a Sun Belt Big Ten bowl game somehow in the world that JMU gets in, and they play. Somehow it's a home field advantage for Indiana in Bloomington.
Pseudo playoff.
But
that's all I got.
I think Indiana wins. I think Indiana beats Ohio State.
I think they're going to hang, man. I think it's going to be a game. I think they're also more talented than people are giving them credit for. Like the G5 transfers they added to and the JMU guys, where they're like, people are like, they're just scheming it up and they're playing with fight. God, they're a gritty bunch. It's like, no, like Kamara and Surratt and like a bunch of these guys are like going to play in the NFL. Like they're not like, oh, that's a gritty accountant. Like, no, that dude's good.
Curtis Rourke is good.
Yeah, Curtis Rourke. I would take Curtis Rourke over Will Howard.
Tyson Lawton has found a resurgence in Bloomington, Indiana somehow.
Ellison's nice too. Like he can't like totally break away from people, but he has that quick burst where he'll get you 15 nicely.
Yeah, they're a good football team. They got a good offensive line.
They do.
They've got their defense.
Pons will probably play in the NFL. I love Pons.
Pons is so good.
Yeah.
No, I'm sad. All right, anything else? Oh, wait, we got to take it around JMU sports.
Yes. Women's
soccer lost in the NCAA tournament, first round to Ohio State. I think that happened roughly around the time we had our last podcast episode. Not breaking too much into basketball as we're already at the hour 14 mark here, but basketball, a little bit of a rough start to the season, but can I just say something? Okay. I'm not worried at all. Like there's some JMU fans out there that are like really upset about this slow start. I'm not worried. They're 2-2, 1-2 against Division I opponents, a tough loss, a blowout loss, 83-69 at Norfolk State, a close 67-63 loss at Towson, who are the CAA favorites to win the whole thing. I'm not too worried. It's a brand new team. They should be very good. And as we all know, coming up on November 21st, tomorrow, we get to watch them in the vaunted Boardwalk battle exclusively on Baller TV.
Yeah, I think that's something too for branding in terms of confidence. Like once you get on Baller TV at 11 a.m. on a Thursday, like that does something for your program. So that'll be huge.
How many people are going to tune in, do you think? 5?
I think you have to pay for Baller TV.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
No effing chance.
I'm not watching these guys. I will stat broadcast watch these games. I refuse to pay for Baller TV.
I'm not paying for Baller TV, which appears to be like a youth sports subscription.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's for like high school sports and AAU.
Yeah, no chance. No chance.
But have you hit the panic button? Are you worried at all? I'm not worried. I think this team is still very much. Yeah.
It's going to take some time. I am a little disappointed though, because like they looked incredible against Ohio. I did not have them starting 2-2 after watching that game. So
that's true. But like, it's still a brand new team. They're still figuring everything else. Their like second best offensive player hasn't played in 365 days. Like he's going to be rusty. It's going to take some time coming back. You got a good stretch at home starting November 29th, Mason, ETSU, and Utah Valley. You can pick up some good 3 road wins. I mean, 3 home wins, considering they've only the one Division I team they played at home, they looked excellent against. So you got some time before your conference season starts on December 21st. Lots of time between now and then to work out the kinks and be good.
Women's team 4-1, lost to Notre Dame by a gazillion.
Don't say it.
But they've looked good in the games against mid-majors, so I think they'll be fine. They've got a really, really tough schedule, which should prep them for the Sun Belt. They're a fun team to watch. Notre Dame is not an easy matchup. That's a legit title contender.
102-69 in their last game against Gardner-Webb.
Imagine Gardner-Webb against Notre Dame.
When you put it like that, men's soccer lost.
No NCAA tournament, yeah.
I was trying to see that. I was like, I forget what. They lost to Georgetown. Marshall 1-0 a week ago, last Wednesday in the Sun Belt
tournament. Did not make the field.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Because they started the season so hot.
I know.
They didn't lose a game until October 8th.
It's not great. Volleyball, Friday, Sun Belt quarterfinals against Texas State, a team they just lost to twice. Not a great year for volleyball. 6-10 in the league, 11-15 overall. So probably not expecting a big run there.
Yep. All right. Anything else? Field hockey did what they needed to do until the Sun Belt the MAC championship game where they fell, unfortunately.
Still a good year, though. A lot of
great year
for them.
Huge bounce back from where they were at this time last season.
Yeah. So overall, pretty solid fall, and now we're in the stretch run of football.
As I yawn for Bennett Conlon, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you for tuning into the JMU Sports News podcast presented by Bet Online. You can follow us at JMU Sports News on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and type in JMU Sports News Network on YouTube to find us there. Hit subscribe. You'll never miss an episode of this podcast or To the House. This drops in the middle of every week. To the House drops every Monday. And while you're there, you can watch all of our exclusive recruiting videos that we talk with potential recruits and guys who have verbally committed. All of that is on our YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts, be sure to subscribe there and please leave a rating. We greatly appreciate that. And of course, if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy what we're doing over on jmusportsnews.com, you can feel free to buy us a coffee, a tea in Bennett's case, or a beer at buymeacoffee.com/JMU Sports News. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day.